Brad, do you need a minute? Are we good? Good to go?
Monday.
All right, thank y'all for being here. We got a good crowd today. I know, hopefully, for the Volker presentation. We'll start with that. Jay Dixon's here, your team. Stratton, do you want to introduce?
Yeah.
Okay. They're going to present the 6th Avenue plan that I know has been worked on for a long time. They had a team, and they'll tell us kind of the history of that and then work us through the presentation. There is an email address, and it's the number 6, so 6th Ave, A-V-E, at decatur-al.gov if anybody wants to submit any feedback, and we'll leave that open throughout the meeting and also throughout the week, or really as long as we need to get some feedback from the public on this plan. So I'll turn it over to Stratton.
Are we mask on or mask?
If you are distance, you're good.
Okay, all right, thank you. Council members, appreciate very much the opportunity to be here with y'all tonight and to talk about this plan. With our 6th Avenue corridor, we really have a historic opportunity in our city to move forward and improve what we have to offer. We have a group of about 15 or 20 of us that have been working. I look back, it's been right at 2 years since we started this effort. I didn't realize it had been that long, but it's been about 2 years. And this, the city invested $5,000 in this initial planning phase. We were fortunate to get an $80,000 ALDOT grant toward the $100,000 engagement with Volkert. And it's a really great partnership. City put up $5,000, the chamber put up money, and DDRA put up money to go with for the local match. But just to remind everybody, this grew out of the residential growth effort that the chamber undertook about 2 or 3 years ago. And one of the biggest messages that came out of that effort, as we brought developers in to talk about what would it take for you to invest in Decatur, that one of the loudest messages that came through was this first impression to the heart of Decatur when you come over our beautiful river, and then you come to the light there at Wilson Street, and what impression does that make to a prospective resident? So we set about to try to do something about that. As y'all know, people are relocating to this area from all over the country. Just last month, the Huntsville region was rated number 4 in the country for highest percentage of inbound versus outbound moves by United Van Lines, a moving company. And we don't see anything in the future that makes us think that's going to slow down. So we literally have tens of thousands of people that are moving to this area, to North Alabama, and they're probably somewhat indifferent when they get here about where are we going to live, which of the cities and the communities within North Alabama are we going to move to. And so we need to put our best foot forward and to win that effort is how we're viewing this. How can we put the city of Decatur in the best position to win that effort when people are making a relocation decision, and to keep our current residents. So this is a retention project and a growth project. So, you know, we can't take for granted that influx is going to last forever. If things are good right now and people are moving, but we've got a time in the sun that we really need to put our best foot forward and make the most of this opportunity. So this is all about winning. This is all about that engagement with people when they first visit our city. And this is a 50-year investment that you're going to be asked to make going forward. So how do we put our city in the best position for the next 50 years to win right now? So we are really have been really blessed to have the team from Volkert working with us on this project. They have been a great guide. They do this kind of work all over the state, and they know what can and cannot be done, what's been successful, what's not been successful. So they've been a great partner in this effort. One other thing I want to mention before I turn it over to them is just how we have seen on 2nd Avenue in downtown Decatur how public investment leads to private investment. And y'all have all been around long enough to remember 2nd Avenue or downtown area, what it looked like 10 years ago before the public investment was made into improving the streetscape, improving the walkability and the appearance of that area. And now we're seeing the fruit of that public investment in private investment. Property values coming up in our downtown. And we're convinced the same thing can happen on 6th Avenue, as this is kind of the next logical step to bring the downtown to 6th Avenue, okay? Because right now it's kind of over there as you come across the bridge into downtown. But this is a way that will connect downtown to 6th Avenue and expand our downtown and make it where you really feel like you've arrived somewhere as you come into the heart of the city. So you'll hear about safety, you'll hear about efficient movement of traffic, you'll hear about appearance and aesthetics, and you'll hear about walkability. So those are kind of the four touchstones that you'll hear about tonight. We have a wonderful and desirable city. We got to put our best foot forward to let everybody know what a wonderful and desirable city it is. We all love living here, but we need to do more to attract the growth that's coming to this North Alabama area. So I'm going to turn it over to Jay Dixon with Volkert, and Jay will introduce the rest of his team and walk us through the presentation. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, Stratton. Thanks everybody for coming tonight and viewing online. But I want to just kind of first introduce our team. We got Brian Bays with our partners at TSW, our landscape architects. Katie Warren, one of our engineers, and Wesley Sanders, one of our engineers here out of the Huntsville office. So yeah, we've had a good team working on this together with Stratton's group, the stakeholder group. Was about 25, 30 people, something like that. Yeah, I think we meet, every month, every couple months, at different stages throughout this. But kind of to talk a little bit about the process real quick before we get into the actual presentation is, we started this with kind of a public survey, and we had, of course, that was about the time COVID started, changing everyone's lives. So we ended up having to kind of do that into a online form, and it had a great amount of participation. I think we had almost 160 people respond to the survey. And out of that, we got some pretty clear kind of directions on what we should be looking at for 6th Avenue. It was, improving the safety and efficiency of vehicles was one. Beautification was a top priority of pretty much everyone that responded. So how can we make the corridor look better and add more landscaping, things like that. And the third one was really walkability, because, like Stratton said, kind of getting downtown and 6th Avenue to kind of work together a little bit better, because right now you got downtown and 6th Avenue is not quite as walkable as downtown. So those are kind of the three driving factors that we were looking at, or we were directed to look at by the public and by everybody that responded. So it was a good first step, and it seemed like a lot of great ideas and things to look at going forward. But so with that, we've had several different iterations of different plans, and we've reviewed with the stakeholder group at different points, and we've kind of narrowed it down to this final corridor plan for 6th Avenue. So with that, Brian, I guess you can go through the plan real quick.
Stay upright here. Hello, good evening. Next slide. Okay, so there were a lot of things we tried to do with this project, but I think some of the key kind of aspects were had to do with focusing on better pedestrian movement on the sidewalks. If you look at the cross section, on both cross sections, we had two kind of areas we were working with. The area from Delano Park to Lee Street, and then from Lee Street to the bridge, two completely different zones. One's kind of more neighborhood oriented, one's more kind of commercial oriented. On both sections, the area between the curbs, the width of the lane stays about the same. On the Delano to Lee Street section, we looked at more access control, leaving that center lane open. On the other section, the bridge, we did introduce a kind of landscape median, and I can go through some of that. But basic elements of the streetscape, we're looking at adding pedestrian scale lighting. We're looking at widening the sidewalk and adding this kind of paver kind of colored buffer here. So right now it's pretty narrow, 3 feet wide sidewalk in some cases. We're actually expanding. Scroll up just a little bit. There we go. So oh, no, there you go. Sorry, I just wanted to check out these dimensions down here. So we've got a 5-walk passable area. We've also have a 3-foot wide brick strip, total of 8 feet wide. So right now when you're walking out there, it's 3 feet wide. You feel like you're kind of teetering on the edge. It's a little dangerous. Adding an extra 4 feet of width really gives people more confidence. They feel safe. This is psychological, that little band of pavement, but it really kind of works to make people feel like there's at least some separation between them and the lane widths. As I mentioned, we are leaving the lane widths the same, 12 feet. We studied reducing them and doing some other things, but there are some real issues with that in ALDOT as they just improved this road. And to to maintain the volume of flow, we need to leave the lane widths the same. And then Volker did a very kind of extensive look at access control on this section of road, which is basically turning movements across traffic, looking at intersections, looking at adding stoplights, and then also looking at mid-block crossings. We have a number of different, we have plans all through the corridor we can go through and go through that. So next section, please. Okay, so this is there you go. So this is the other section with the landscape median. And this one, it's got a big tree in the middle of it, which we're talking about doing. But I think the important thing to note is it's the width of the center lane. In these areas, we don't need to be able to turn across traffic except at intersections. And where we're at intersections, we're actually tapering the height of the landscape down to 30 inches maximum. So we're leaving clear view corridors across the way. And then we're also adding just outside the right-of-way in this area from Lee Street to the bridge, some street trees to try and kind of soften the edges, create a canopy over time. It won't be instant. These things take 30 years, but it's time to invest in it now so that when people arrive off the bridge, they're kind of welcomed with this kind of arching tree canopy. Same thing, same idea down here with streetlights. So one thing to note is that on one side of the right-of-way, there's already an existing buffer. On the other side, it's going to be a conversation with adjacent property owners to see if they will allow us to plant shade trees in that area. So, next slide. Okay. So, walking from Prospect towards Lee Street, we've got a number of these different elements that we just looked at. We've got the concrete sidewalk. You can see where we need it. We've got turning lanes, and where we don't need it, like here's an instance where we did some kind of traffic control. And you guys can talk about this a little bit. We went to a median just to provide separation there, and in this case, I think this is where we added one of these kind of mid-block crossings. So
yeah, on those sections, basically, yeah, this is at Delano Park there, and on the next slide we'll get to it in a second about how to kind of help the traffic flow in these two intersections that are so close together. But because this is kind of this is kind of a neighborhood feel,
right.
and a lot of the existing structures are really, really close to the roadway, so it's a lot tighter corridor here than it is as you go further north towards the bridge. So a couple of these streets, there's just not enough cross traffic to, we can kind of add the median in to soften the edge because we don't have room to soften the corridor on the outside because of the structures. We're kind of using the median to soften the corridor in this area. But talking about these two intersections at Gordon and Prospect around Delano, I'm sure everybody knows how close those lights are together, and there's kind of a very schools and everything. It gets kind of congested at certain times of the day. So one of the things that an idea we had that we talked to the school board about this and seemed to have their support on it, but maybe making Prospect and Gordon here on the east side one way. So it'd be a counterclockwise one-way loop. Can you go next slide, please? So what that does is it basically takes those two signals that are kind of operating independently now and makes them work together with a one-way loop around the park. And then there's a lot of benefits to that. One, the traffic flow and safety on 6th Avenue is drastically improved. But also, if we're using the same asphalt footprint that goes around the park now, and with it one way, we can actually add parallel on-street parking adjacent to the park to get more better access and better utilization of the park. Also, with the traffic flows for the school, again, we work with the school board about this, and this is what they prefer versus the clockwise movement, because how their buses and how their traffic comes in, they come in and go to the alley here and do their pickup and drop off. So this actually worked really well with their traffic flow. So it's kind of it came out of the idea of how to kind of fix the 6th Avenue intersections, but it actually became a pretty good idea around the park, and again, the great thing about this, we're not talking about any new asphalt, this is existing asphalt, it's literally restriking the current roadway to just try to change and put some signs up, that's all we really have to do. Part of the discussion we had last week was what to do about this 8th Avenue, portion that goes to the middle of the park. You know, right now, there's, you know, traffic signals at both those intersections, those don't really need to be there, be four-way stops and be just fine. And part of that too was also doing some type of mid-block pedestrian crossing for the park, make it safe, you know, whether it's like a speed table with a pedestrian crossing or something like that, to make it safe for, you know, parents and kids that they're, you know, going from one side of the park to the other to have a safe mid-block crossing there, and also have a little more traffic calming there in the middle of the park. Next slide, please. So anyway, so Jackson Street, that's another one of those where there's not enough traffic across 6 that, you know, we can really better utilize that space with a median instead of a full movement intersection.
One of the big bits of feedback we got actually the last time that we presented this was providing a lot more of this kind of lateral movement from neighborhood to neighborhood. And, you know, in a couple of places we had things like churches that people wanted to be able to have access to. So we added those items. If you look at this, I didn't mention this on the other one there, these little red dots are actually light locations. You can kind of see them, they're small. That's going to drastically change the look of the corridor. Right now, there are really tall, more vehicular type light poles that are probably like 20 feet tall. So these are probably 14 feet tall. They're decorative. They might have banners on them, which I think is what the city's doing right now. And really kind of, you know, the idea is to bring a lot of that spirit, you know, of in town to this road. So we're kind of grabbing people and letting them know and celebrating that they're here in Decatur. A lot of the same kind of stuff going on here. There's not much not much of the driveway access management happening here until we get down.
No, that's
the
more
other
the
side.
side.
Okay, next slide. So this Johnson Street is another one that we didn't feel we needed turning movements into. So they're pushing traffic down to this corridor, but you know, I think in all those cases it looks like we provided.
Yeah, that was one of the pieces of feedback that we got from the stakeholder group was even if we were kind of restricting left turns in these blocks, allowing those pedestrian crossings to happen in those blocks to kind of have that great interconnectivity between the neighborhoods on each side. And with the median in there, you have a nice refuge, so it's safe. You're not having to, you know, trying to sprint across, you know, 60-something feet of asphalt and traffic at one time. You can kind of get to the median and get to the next one. And there's a lot of things you can do with those mid-block crossings with pedestrian, you know, signs and yield to pedestrian. So there's a lot of little details like that we'll have to work through on that piece. But the idea was to maintain that pedestrian connectivity in the neighborhood.
Other safety things you'll see as we come down farther this way, you'll see the drives are more delineated. Right now on certain properties, the entire edge is a driveway and the sidewalk's not defined. So a lot of what we're doing here is really just defining different zones, vehicle zones, pedestrian zones, driveway zones, and you know, not with the idea of limiting access to the parcels or to the businesses, but just kind of clarifying and making it safer for people who are walking or for folks that are turning into those driveways. Next. Okay, so this is Lee Street, and this is kind of where there's a bunch of stuff happening here, but this is really where we kind of changed from neighborhood to more commercial. And I think the other important thing is this is the downtown historic district in this kind of quadrant on. At Lee Street, because it's the main kind of entrance into the downtown area off 6th, we're going to do a more kind of special intersection with pavers or colored pavement. Something that matches the kind of historic pavers, and we're also going to run anywhere that you turn into the historic district. We're going to run a band of those pavers. So you're kind of crossing a threshold in the historic district off of 6th Avenue. This is where the really continuous median starts as well. And then we also looked at some traffic traffic calming in this area. You've got a lot of lanes going into downtown and probably more capacity there than you need. So did we, and we added that parking there too?
Yeah, so that was kind of a similar concept that we're talking about around Delano Park, is that right now there's, you know, 2 lanes in, 2 lanes out, or actually 3 lanes out of downtown. And there's really not, there's way too many lanes for the amount of traffic that's coming in using Lee Street. So again, putting down kind of on a little bit of a road diet, reusing some of that asphalt area for some on-street parking and some landscaping areas can really enhance that entrance into proper downtown proper off of 6th Avenue. So, you know, Lee is kind of where all that's happening. That's really where you introduce people. You know, you already introduced them into Decatur, you know, coming over the bridge. Now we're going to introduce them into downtown off Lee. That was kind of the concept there.
Right. One other important thing that we have here is a marker. And down Delano Park, there are those tall stone columns that are markers. We're also proposing a couple kind of key locations along the corridor. A marker that's similar to that. It's going to be brick. It's not going to be stone because we want the one at Delano Park to have its own kind of unique look and feel. So we're trying to make ones associated with the historic district and the entrance of town a little bit different, but to feel like they're in the same family. So we're saying one of those might happen there in the center island. And then the other important thing about this is this Walnut Street intersection. I think it's the only street that we're just saying no access to, right?
Yeah, so right now it's, you know, it comes in at a kind of a skewed angle in a curve, and it's kind of a dangerous situation on 6th. And right now, and Katie, it's one way right now. So one thing we talked about doing would be, you know, if we cut off the access to 6th, but also make it 2 ways. So it's becomes strictly a residential street. And it becomes a lot safer because you can see it's kind of side distance and that curve and all. It's just really not an ideal situation. But we did leave the left turn into the east side of Walnut because of some of the commercial uses over there. We kind of had to maintain some delivery access. So that left turn onto the east side did remain.
And remember when I was talking earlier, I mentioned the landscape easement area. That actually would start up here. This dashed line is that easement. We have constricted right-of-way here that just ends at the back of the sidewalk. So to get the kind of street tree feel, you know, that's an area that we would recommend grabbing an extra 10 feet of some type of easement that would be part of this, that would kind of add to the character of the street. That also is a way to kind of bypass some of the ALDOT requirements not to have larger trees in the right-of-way. So doing that allows us to put larger, kind of more mature canopy trees adjacent to the right-of-way that y'all would own and take care of. Fine.
So this is talking about, this is kind of more of the civil plans of talking about the traffic flow. We've kind of covered a lot of this already. This is back on the Delano Park.
Hey, Jay, do you mind, I think people are struggling to hear, if y'all can just
no,
swap
no,
out.
okay.
Thanks, man.
So I think here we pretty much already covered all this. We talked about the mid-block crossings there at Sherman and Johnson and Cabot Street. So you can keep going. One thing that I didn't mention earlier. So during this process, we're actually we've got about 7 or 8 intersections left that will have, how many is it that will have signals at now? Anyway, so these key intersections, everywhere you see a traffic signal, this is at Grant here. Part of the plan is to take down the span wire signals now and put the mast arm signals so to really clean up the kind of vertical clutter you see with all the lines going everywhere. And also working with Decatur Utilities, we figured out that most of those overhead power lines actually only serve as street lights. So these new street lights we're talking about putting in would that power would go underground. So the majority of all these overhead power lines and lines would actually be underground, and all that kind of vertical, air clutter would kind of go away with all the lines that are in the air. Keep going. between Moulton and Holly is where you kind of start seeing some of the, you know, the edge improvements that, Brian was mentioning about. Right now, a lot of these parcels just kind of have one big wide driveway that covers the entire width of the parcel. So what we want to do is, you know, we're not going to cut off any access, but we want to define their driveway points and kind of consolidate that to one area. Because when you have that big wide driveway, it creates safety problems for cars, you know, because not knowing, you know, where they're supposed to be. But also, when you introduce the enhanced pedestrian improvements, it becomes really confusing and unsafe for pedestrians walking across those big, giant driveways. So we're going to try to define those different areas by use. So it really kind of picks up here at Moulton and carries on pretty much down to Wilson. Next slide. So here we are here at Lee, and again, yeah, we have a mast arm traffic signal there at Lee, and the stuff we talked about at Walnut. One thing we've been working with ALDOT that they would like to see us work towards as we upgrade these signals is setting up the technology and the equipment to have some type of adaptive signal program or synchronized signals, so that it's going to help traffic flow through the corridor and reduce the congestion. So a lot of these things we're talking about, you know, it's really a lot about beautification. But a lot of things we're doing is going to eliminate these conflicting traffic movements, and it's going to increase the efficiency of the roadway and safety of the roadway. So cars will be able to, you know, they'll be going probably at the same speed or maybe a little slower, but they're going to have less impediments along the way. So it's actually going to improve the congestion along 6th Avenue from a traffic operations standpoint. Next slide. So Brian, you can take this one.
Yeah, so we did a couple of visualizations. You can scroll up just a little bit. Not quite fit on the screen, but that's okay. So this is at Lee and 6th Avenue, and we kind of superimposed this on Google Earth and made some changes to show you kind of how this would all kind of run out. So talk about adding the new lights. We also have taken away the overhead lines, and then I mentioned earlier this large kind of brick area that you would it would signify that this is the kind of gateway to downtown, and then you can kind of see how the landscape, you know, this is an idea of how the landscape might happen in that area, and then I'll show you more images of that, but that's kind of what one of those little brick markers would look like. Subtle, but subtle, classy, and it works with the existing sign standard that y'all have been using. Next. Another shot, just kind of at car level. You can scroll up just a little bit. There you go. So this is actually looking back over the right lane turning onto Lee Street. Next slide. And then you can scroll down just a hair. So this is San Delano Park, and then this is kind of what we're proposing, which is really just a brick version of that keys into some of this historic signage that has been developed for that area. And this is just representative. We haven't. I don't know that we've finalized that, but you know that's the type of decal that we would do on that sign. Everything else would match exactly, so you start to have a rhythm happen with the signage. And then we also have, we can also use these smaller ones, which you guys are already using to identify historic districts as well as supplementary signage. Next. Okay, and this is at Church Street. So this is, you know, this is obviously a really important view coming down here. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we're proposing over here as well. But this is, you come down, there's a lot of turn lanes to handle that right-hand turn there, and then we go into this median, and you can start to see the continuation of that easement that I talked about for the large trees, and what you're going to get here on both sides and the center of that. And then this is going into the turn, and you remember Walnut Street up there at the top. mentioned the decorative brick banding, which actually would happen at all those streets too. I don't think we're showing that here. Next slide. And this is the big kind of intersection at Wilson Street. So we're maintaining all the traffic flows that are there right now, but I think the big difference is these are just concrete medians right now, and our idea is to demo the centers of those out and add landscape in those areas to really kind of soften that welcome. There's also that big mast sign. Yeah, there's an overhead sign there. We're not going to use that. We're going to take that down and replace it with a couple markers on either side of the road. So something a little more subtle. And then the welcome's really going to be the big trees and the arched branches and a really nice kind of landscape expression, which y'all have already started over here. We're just going to continue doing that at that intersection. And then also some crosswalk improvements as well to make that safer. Next.
So yeah, not to, this, I think Brian pretty much covered it all, but yeah, working with the DOT, a lot of the improvements they had just done at Wilson Street, we kind of believe the traffic patterns is, pretty much the way they are, but we're just trying to enhance. Yeah, some of the crosswalks, is already got a nice path going down under the bridge right there on the east side. And like Brian said, a lot of it is just taking that, the DOT does those big concrete medians really just for a maintenance reason. It's easier for them to maintain. So just kind of taking this big piece of the concrete out, the curbing would stay in, but the middle would become landscaping, and also kind of soften this transition median area and put landscaping there. It just kind of really softens that entrance when you come across the bridge. I think there's a little bit of driveway kind of consolidation here, but not much. I think the DOT's already done most of that. So there's not a whole lot happening with the driveway accesses. Next slide. And again, this is kind of that same section going up with a nice big consistent median all the way up to the chamber building there at Walnut. We do have a little bit of driveway kind of consolidation and cleanup on the edges, just again to better define those spaces. Anything else to add on this? Huh? Oh yeah, with Lafayette and Vine would be close, just like Walnut, because there's a lot of kind of connectivity in the neighborhood. There's just with the side distance and the curve, there's just not enough traffic and reason to leave those connected to be able to make that section a little bit nicer. Next slide.
And here's kind of aerial view of this intersection as well. Coming down off the bridge, this is kind of the welcome view, and you can see the markers on either side there, and no big overhead signs. So just something that's scaled a little more appropriately to the scale of Decatur, which is friendly and inviting, which I think is what we're really going for, and beautiful on top of that. Next slide. Here's the car view of it, and I think one of the great things is we're not going to block it, but we are going to soften some of the kind of harshness of the commercial down there. And there's always a balance with that. We don't want to block signs and deprive anybody of views to their business, but we just want to soften it and make it more inviting. You can see we have a poorly placed van here, but the marker's right behind it. So next slide. And we talked about this. You can keep rolling through this. A couple things, we didn't really show these in the plans, but one, because we're kind of talking about streetscapes and what these, ideas that you might use for the streetscapes, we feel like there's already a pretty good vibe going on here, classic vibe for street furniture. We'd like to do something simple that's kind of timeless. We can do same thing with lighting and trash cans. There's already a really, there's a lot of interesting art that we've seen around town as well. And we thought there might be opportunities to integrate art with things like bike parking and other things, so that when there aren't bikes on, there's something that's fun and interesting to look at. So we threw a couple ideas on here about that. Next slide. And then I won't go into detail about this. This will be online if anybody wants to geek out on landscape plants. I'll be glad to answer questions about that. But I think the key things are, we got to keep things low and small in the right of way proper, because things like cars running over curbs and hitting things happens. That's just a reality of life, and we don't want to put anything in there that's going to hurt somebody if they hit it. So AlDOT really wants us to focus on keeping plants low, so visibility is good, and the calipers of trees to a reasonable size, so that trees aren't stopping cars, they're just breaking away and not hurting folks. So that's kind of our high level approach to the landscape now, until we kind of really start diving into details on it. Next slide, I think that might be it.
Ryan, along those lines, you might mention too, moving the utility poles back away from 6th Avenue from a safety standpoint.
Yes.
As we know who live here, the utility poles are right up.
That's right.
6th Avenue, so if a car leaves
That's right.
jumps a curb, it's a really dangerous.
Well, I mean, hopefully we're getting rid of as many of them as we can.
Yeah, so straight on that, that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier, that, so all the, or, 90% of those poles that are right on the edge of the curb now are just for the street lights. So we're talking about, taking those down, moving those pedestrian scale street lights further out towards the businesses. There is some distribution lines right there, Wilson up to Walnut area, that, we're kind of having to leave that in place for the time being, or at least that's the plan right now, but thinking that over time that maybe even that could go away. But as far as, those heavy poles and everything, that would be pretty much the only thing left that would be kind of, in the corridor. Everything else will be, much smaller, further away from the road, and help the aesthetics, number one, but definitely help the safety tremendously too.
Yeah, declutter. I mean, where possible, we combine things, signs, poles, and declutter, removing that. Just doing that will have a huge visual impact for sure.
That's right. So that's kind of where we stand with the final plan. We would love any kind of feedback that anyone has. I know we've got an email address set up now that we can receive kind of comments on. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. There's a lot of different ways you can approach implementation of this that we've kind of had some early discussions on, and different kind of programs to do that. And I guess once we get through this stage, we can kind of start working on what that implementation plan really looks like.
Jay, is there anybody else, I know a lot of people are here, that wanted to comment on the project?
Let me ask you a question. You talked about softening the look and putting vegetation in the median area and a lot of things like that. Have you given thought to what the annual cost is going to be to maintain that?
Yeah, we have. We're working with Parks and Rec to go through some of those anticipated costs. That's one of the things that we have left to do, is kind of have a follow-up call with Parks and Rec and their contractor to just kind of work through the plan and see what we can do to kind of keep that annual maintenance cost as low as possible. Because that's definitely something we all got to think about. And a lot of that can be dealt with just talking about plant material. There's some plant material is pretty much maintenance free, and others takes a little bit more. But the idea would be to have the corridor and the landscaping to be kind of as maintenance free and kind of self-sustaining as possible.
So we don't have any sort of cost at this point, is what you're saying, basically?
Not confirmed now. They've given some early cost, and we just need to dive in a little deeper with that. I think there's been some assumptions that they're not clear on right now.
Along those lines, any sprinkler systems?
So we have the option to do that, and we've talked to the DOT about, because they have some certain restrictions they will and will not allow, and we've kind of gone back and forth with that, honestly. And the kind of where we stand at the end was like, let's try to use, drought tolerant plant material that doesn't really need irrigation, because you know, talk about annual maintenance costs, irrigation is just another thing that just kind of is a perpetual cost on the corridor. And, yeah, so I mean, I guess, you know, that's where we stand right now. I think the jury's still a little bit out on that, but I mean, we want to try to do it without irrigation, is what we would prefer to do.
There is combination too, we should mention it in the median, probably not doing irrigation, just to get those lines across the pavement would be difficult, but it would, you know, be more feasible thing to do on
On
the
the
edge.
edge, yeah.
So, just choosing different plant material between the two.
And the median would be where the DOT would have the biggest heartburn about irrigating, because, yeah, that has some implications for them as well, so.
We should add too, we've talked to Decatur Utilities, we've talked to Parks and Rec, we're still in talks, getting more comments from the fire department and police department to see how, you know, what we've proposed in closing intersections and streetlights affects access time. So we've talked to the school about the parks, we've tried to gain input from those stakeholders, those user groups, and now the public as well.
Can you speak a little bit to the brick pavers at the intersection of Lee, as far as the upkeep, maintenance, what we expect
Yeah,
out of
and
those?
so that was actually one of the questions or comments that the DOT has, like, yeah, who's maintaining that, who's responsible? So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. I mean, if you use actual brick pavers, I mean, they hold up actually better than asphalt. They're very, very firm. They have a high PSI, rating, so durability would not be a problem there. You have, with actual brick pavers, you do have a little bit of, you got to kind of watch it, because they will, if you ever get a little soft spot in the base, they will start moving a little bit on you. So there's some concerns with that, or some things we have to consider. There's other ways you can kind of get that look with stamped concrete, or I wouldn't want to do stamped asphalt or anything like that, because it doesn't last. But there's several different ways you can do that. But ultimately, I think that whatever kind of decorative treatment we do in that area would become kind of a maintenance item for the city long term. So the idea would be, if that's going to be the case, then let's make it as maintenance free as we possibly can. So whatever, even if it maybe costs a little bit more upfront, if it reduces the annual cost to maintain it, it's worth the investment. So, but there's a lot of details in that, like sections like that we've got to still kind of work through when we start getting into a deeper dive into the plans.
Dane?
On the, right there at Church Street, I noticed that there's not an area right there where you could put a sign there to say, make sure you turn left, because it's a real problem with people going up to Wilson Street thinking they can turn left like they used to since they changed the traffic. And I didn't see any space there for a sign there.
Yeah, and we had that conversation with DOT, so I'm glad you brought that up.
It's a real problem.
Keep going up.
There's no telling how many people I see go across the bridge to do a U-turn because they just.
Come back, they missed the turn.
Right there at that point
That's
right
church
there.
right there.
So, yeah, we'll go one more. Keep going. Here we go. All right, so, what we talked about doing with DOT is, because it kind of had the same situation here and at Wilson with that overhead sign. Is that once that overhead sign goes, you still have to have that signage somewhere. So what we would do is find a location on the edge that would be directional, and you could even add, legend on the asphalt, which the DOT does as well, to make sure people get in the right
That's
way.
probably gonna be the only solution, because you don't put something above him where they can see it or across in front of them, they're not gonna see, that's the only, way you've got it, the only solution is gonna be on the road. Because if you keep it narrow like you've got it on that other video, slide, people are not gonna be able to see it.
Right. Yeah, so that's one of those things that, we know that we're gonna, it's gonna be, at the end of the today, it's probably gonna be a combination of signage and some pavement markings. And you could even have some advanced signage, you know, further up the street here to let them know early, like, hey, you get in this lane and this is the way you wanna go if you're going west or whatever. So, yeah, there's a whole, and we're not really showing any of when I say signage, I mean like traffic signs. We're not really showing any of the plans right now, but there's a lot of things that would have to happen with all this to make sure we have people knowing where they need to go from a traffic standpoint.
Yeah, question. How long is this project gonna take, and how long will I'm assuming there's gonna be a detour. People coming from Huntsville into the city, they're gonna have to detour to get to their houses. I know we have hundreds of people coming in from businesses in Huntsville coming into the city, so what's the estimated time?
So really, we would not have a detour. We would have some lane closures, but we would not have a detour. The one exception that we'll have to kind of look at in close detail is that Lee Street intersection, because if we start talking about pavers, you can't really close a lane. You kind of got to close the whole intersection to do that. But with the exception of that one intersection, the rest, it would maintain open. We would just close lanes, like, so for instance, if we're doing the median work, we would just close the inside lane and do the have the outside lane open, and flip it over when you start doing the edge improvements. You would do the same thing the other way. The other thing, because this is right in downtown, we would talk about, this is a lot of details to get to work through, but maybe doing night work, because there is a lot of traffic on the corridor. There's a lot of things like that we would have to consider, on the implementation side to make sure we try to limit the disruption to, kind of normal daily life of businesses and residents. So, yes, there's definitely a traffic control plan that's got to be there, but we would never want to close down the whole corridor. Like I said, we want to just kind of do lane closures and leave as much of it open as possible.
I've got two questions. On some of the renderings, they were showing some trees in the medians. If we do that, how do we guarantee as these trees mature that they're not outgrowing and buckling the asphalt? And then the second question is ALDOT going to sign off on a brick monument sign in a median? I know they're very, very peculiar about what in fact they allow on rights of ways and medians.
Yeah, and we've started that conversation with them, and actually have kind of a little list of things to consider is what they called it, which is kind of early comments in their world. And answering the monuments first, they said the same thing, like, hey, we just need to be careful about where we place them, because there's clear zone issues we got to make sure we address. And luckily, where we're talking about doing it, we have room we can work around. I think we'll be okay on that side. The trees will be a little bit more of a tricky situation in the median. So we can either, the caliber trees that they would even allow in the median would be so small, buckling would actually never be an issue.
Gotcha.
So the question is, do we want to have, smaller trees, something, I'm just like a crepe myrtle that has a really small trunk, but has a nice, head and flowers and everything. Because they stay pretty small, they're kind of breakaway. That's one application. Or you could just look at, well, if we have the more shade trees on the outside, maybe just do more, low-level shrubs or something in the median. So there's a lot of little details like that. But definitely the trees in the median will probably be the bigger challenge of all that, honestly, because they're going to be really, really peculiar about what actual trees they'll allow us to do in there. And the buckling thing actually will probably never be an issue. It'll be more just as this tree grows and matures, is it going to have to be taken out and replaced for something smaller over time? And that's what we want to try to avoid as well.
A lot of times too, ALDOT has more concerns about the branching shape and if it will hit passing vehicles, trucks. And so that's something to consider in terms of maintenance of who comes through and cuts that, or do we pick a tree, like Jay said, the crepe myrtle, and the certain variety that stays smaller, more compact and less overhanging, or it doesn't get so high and overhanging that it's basically under or over all the vehicles.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Maybe a distance, but how long and how much estimate?
How long? And I'm sorry, the officer asked me how long earlier, and I didn't answer that part. So we think it would take about 12 months to construct. And again, a lot of that's depending on how we set up the traffic control and sequence of construction. The design and permitting phase would probably take 8 months to a year. So start to finish, you're probably talking about, you just say 2 years. I mean, from right now going forward, it's probably gonna take 2 years to get the thing.
Is that for both phases?
Yeah, that would be for everything. And right now, the overall kind of conceptual cost estimate with the traffic signals and everything kind of shown in the plans is a little over $7 million. So, but again, we're still, some of those details, for instance, the pavers. I mean, there's a lot of big assumption in that because there's a lot of cost difference on what material you actually use there. And so that's where we're at. It's a pretty conservative estimate, but that's kind of all the information we have right now.
Okay, any other questions from council? I have an email I'm gonna read. Oh, Kent, did you want to speak?
Question, but I do have a comment.
Do you mind, Kent, so people can hear you? I'm sorry.
Used to call them the same thing.
Yeah. Need your name
All
and
people.
address.
Name and address.
Council, my name's Kent Lawrence, and as most of you know, I've been involved in the One Decatur Comprehensive Plan from the beginning. And the plan was developed through community input and participation. It wasn't developed by the city government. The plan has about 140 actions in it, and I'd like to read one of those action items. Redefine the 6th Avenue Gateway. As the primary entry to Decatur, the appearance of 6th Avenue between downtown and the river fundamentally shapes visitor perception and community pride. The city should focus beautification efforts on this area through capital improvements to the street lighting, landscaping, pedestrian facilities, utilities, and also through zoning updates that support higher quality design and pedestrian scale development. In October of 2017, the draft of this plan was first presented to the city at the Princess Theater. Then it was on display for another 3 weeks throughout the city. Citizens were asked to rate the actions in the plan, and out of all the actions, redefining the 6th Avenue Gateway was the top action. So I think it's safe to say that many citizens of Decatur would like to see this development happen, and I encourage the council to find a way to make this project happen. Also want to thank Stratton and everybody involved in developing this plan. And I'd also like to thank the council for your service and leadership to our great city.
Thank you, Kent.
All right, anybody else? I had an email, I'll just read it. This is from Crystal Brown, Vice President of Development for the Decatur Morgan County Chamber of Commerce. City Councilman, more than 2 years ago, the Chamber's Residential Development Task Team began meeting to find ways to assist our city leaders with Decatur's lack of residential growth. Opportunities to encourage growth have been discussed and many have been implemented, resulting in multiple residential projects currently under construction. One overwhelming impediment cited by potential developers and investors continues to rise to the top of the list: the appearance of our gateway into our city. The need to distinguish the fact that you are welcome and have arrived in the special place that we all know Decatur is needs to be prominently and clearly defined when crossing the bridge. Volkert has thoughtfully designed a plan to create an image that we can all be proud of as we enter Decatur, and one that we believe will create synergy for other areas in our city. We appreciate your visionary leadership and commitment to seeing our city grow. Thank you. All right, anything else? Jay, thank you. Stratton, thank you. I know it's been a long process getting this plan put together, and we look forward to figuring out how to make something move forward. And I guess we'll keep working with you guys. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Stratton. All right, y'all are welcome to stay. All right, we'll move through our agenda. This is the agenda for next week's council meeting, and we'll answer any questions that anybody has. All right, the first is a proclamation from the mayor regarding Black History Month. Mayor, any comments there? Okay. All right, next we have monthly bills, approved January 2021 monthly bills. Any questions? All right, approval of minutes, January 25th, 2021, 5 p.m. work session, February 1st, 2021, 5:30 p.m. work session, City Council regular meeting, February 1st, 2021, 6 p.m. Any questions? All right, set public hearing, resolution number 21-29, resolution approving use of additional land within land jointly owned by the City of Decatur and Morgan County for a new construction and demolition C&D waste disposal area. Wanda?
Good evening, Wanda Tyler, landfill and recycling. This is for an expansion of our current construction and demolition debris disposal area. Is approximately 60 acres southeast of cells 2 through 9, where we currently dispose of some C&D waste. This also includes a request for a public hearing, which will be held on March 15th at 10 o'clock. In order to, this is part of the permit process, in order to get any public questions or anything like that answered during that time.
Okay, any questions for Wanda? That public hearing is March 15th, right? Okay. All right, thanks Wanda. All right, next we have public hearing resolution number 21-30, approved request for a special retail liquor license for Juan Martinez Roman, doing business as Natchez Latinas at 3709 US Highway 31, Decatur, Alabama 35603, Sal.
Hey, good evening. So this is an event center similar to the Magnolia Room in Sykes Place. This request has been reviewed by the Revenue Department and the Police Department and is recommended for approval.
Okay, any questions? Thanks, Sal. All right, next we have resolution number 21-31, approve MUB expenditure of $887,790 for water treatment plant pumping and piping improvements construction contingency. Somebody for DU?
Yes, Mr. Lyman, Tom Cleveland with Dennis Facility. Hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
This expenditure goes with the one right below it, so it might be good to cover that one first, and then go back to the contingency.
Okay, yeah, let me just read that one, Tom, and you can cover both of them. The second one is resolution number 21-32, approve MUB expenditure of $8,877,900 for water treatment plant pumping and piping improvements construction.
Okay, yes, this is an expenditure to install approximately 3,120 feet of new distribution piping valves to replace cast iron piping and valves which were installed between 1936 and 1966 inside the fence at the water treatment plant, and approximately 3,200 feet of cast iron distribution piping installed in 1936 located outside the fence and in the vicinity of Market and Grant Street. This project also includes the replacement of one filter backwash pump and 4 4-million-gallon pumps and motors at finished water pump station number 1, with new 7.3-million-gallon pumps and motors to variable speed drives. We received 4 responsive bids on the project, with Garney Construction being the lowest responsive bidder. Garney's performed similar large-scale projects for us in the past, and all the references have been checked and verified. So we would recommend awarding this project to Garney. In addition to that, our board requested that we do a 10% contingency for this project because we are affecting every aspect of the water plant from the original plant that was there through all of the construction phases and expansions going forward. So this will allow us, if we run into any unforeseen issues during this project, we would have funds available to continue the project without having to go back to the council for approval. The use of this contingency money would have to be approved by our board in advance before we could use that.
Thanks, Tom. How long is that construction?
That construction project is going to be about 18 months.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom.
I hope to be there in person next week.
Okay, thank you. Resolution number 21-33, approval of Board of Zoning and Adjustments, BOZA board members. Stephanie, this is,
This is just to update, correct the current ones that are on there. There's been people that have resigned and positions have changed. So this is just getting it updated and everybody's position and time.
okay.
The existing membership, the appointments and all that has been so confusing, it's hard to reconstruct. Basically, this is just a line in the sand, and Stephanie's done a
Yeah.
master job going back and figuring out. But this states things as they exist now, so we've got a starting point to go forward.
And there is one member that would be a third term,
Yes,
correct?
that is
He is serving at the wishes of the council now, and that would be appointing him for a full term.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd strongly suggest we keep Mr. Stevenson on there. I've appeared before Boza a lot, and he's an asset to that board.
He does an outstanding job, and he's at every meeting. I mean,
I think Mr. Jackson had seconded that
Yes.
earlier, so, okay. Any questions on the BOZA cleanup, is that what we'll call that? All right, resolution number 21-34, approved purchase, solid waste collection truck. Ricky,
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello? All right. That request is to buy a solid waste collection truck, from Ingram's Equipment Company located out on Fort Payne area. Yeah, I need to do a little housekeeping on the resolution. I spoke with Stephanie already. I had asked for $217,479.85. It's actually $215,479.85. She's gonna get that, cleaned up before we meet next Monday night. That's about a $35,000 discount buying it off the Sourcewell contracts. We've done that for a long time now, and that helps in the long run. It's being funded from the $1 per month sanitation designation. Currently, that won't be post-January. When finance post-January's numbers, we'll have $184,616. We're gonna need to borrow from the unassigned fund balance about $31,000 for 2 months. And when we cross that 2 months, we'll have collected enough money back in that account to put back into the general fund. So I spoke with Kyle about that. He's okay with that. So we're gonna need that $31,000 for about 2 months. The good thing about this truck is on the ground. It's ready to hit the road to start running. That's very rare because normally it's 8 to 9 months when we order one. We've got 2 we ordered back in October. We haven't received them yet and probably won't get them until April, May. So this is a good deal and we've got the money for it except for the $31,000 that we're gonna have to borrow.
Okay, thanks. Ricky, any questions? You're good? Okay. All right, thanks, Ricky.
Thank you.
All right, resolution number 21-35, authorize mayor to execute agreement with Tim Cant Services LLC. Mayor?
Yeah, good afternoon, council. Really, I think I sent out, shared this with you a couple of times, and then over the weekend, I sent out a resume for Mr. Cant. And then also last week, I was reminded by Mr. Marks that we have, the city is an affiliate with the Keep Alabama Beautiful, and we believe that there's still a affiliate relationship with Keep America Beautiful. We've got to confirm that. Other than that, that really nothing has changed as presented.
Okay, any questions?
Thank you. We do have an agreement with Keep America Beautiful, and they offer free consulting, Mayor. Is that not accurate? Well, I won't say free consulting.
I really wasn't involved in that.
Yeah, I won't say free consulting, but it's part of that package. So I guess I'm sort of, if we can get consulting on beautification and litter and those things from them, and we're already paying a fee, I guess I'm kind of curious as to why we're doing this.
Well, this isn't just for beautification, litter and things of that nature. This is for Mr. Kent with his years with city government, the successes that he has enjoyed. To be able to come in and just see if there's some things that that he can do to benefit the city of Decatur. And of course, Councilman Jackson, that's right now we're just looking at a 3-month agreement that can be extended. But we just, this Mr. Kent didn't know until Senator Orr brought him in to visit with us, and we just don't believe that Senator Orr would bring us something that would do anything but try to bring value to the city. And the same with Representative Collins.
I guess when I look at his background and pull him up on the internet, I don't find a lot of information regarding what we're asking him to do here.
Well, we're asking him to look at everything within the city as it relates to our operations. So he has a pretty extensive background as it relates to sanitation, even utilities, recycling, landscaping. Mr. Kent started in '83 with the city of Fairhope, and they showed nice growth during that time.
Mayor, has Mayor Kent had a history of procuring some federal dollars? Is that one of the big pluses?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That was one of the things that Senator Ward mentioned that he had been successful in doing, was being able to go and obtain federal funding and then getting that federal funding brought through Montgomery, and then from Montgomery back through to Fairhope, back home.
But Mayor, I think we all know, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were finished. Go ahead.
Well, we just have never really had someone that, and Councilman Jackson, you've been doing this a long time, you may know someone that has been able to help the city and, as just mentioned, but right now we really don't have anyone that's real strong as it relates to being able to help us in DC.
Well, I just do know that if we're, if he's good at procuring grants, if grants are out there, we've got grants, people who write grants here, and I mean, if they're out there, all we've got to do is, basically apply, and if we qualify, we're going to be eligible for it. So I don't understand that aspect of it, but I'm concerned that that we're bringing somebody on who really doesn't have. Again, Fairhope is completely different from the city of Decatur. It's apples and oranges. So to say whatever happened in Fairhope, and I don't know that you can attribute the growth of Fairhope to Mayor Kent. So I just, I'm kind of, I'm puzzled by this whole thing, really.
How much is the agreement going to cost?
It's, from what I remember, Mayor, $1,500 a month, I think.
Yes, sir.
Plus his expenses.
Yeah, plus travel, that's right.
And that's for 2 days a month?
Yeah.
Yes.
Will that be on a regular schedule? Kind of consistent, he'll come the same two, second week, fourth week, or what? Do we know yet?
You know what, Councilman, Pike, I didn't ask that question. I think he has some existing clients right now, and we can certainly work that out to where it's an agreement with the council.
So 2 days a month, $1,500 a month, and travel expenses. How many months is this going to be going on?
I think it was a 3-month.
3-month trial.
1 year.
3-month trial.
Yes. Any other questions? I'll just say, I mean, I'm obviously no expert in beautification or getting federal funds or being the mayor of the city, but he did come with high recommendation from people that I greatly respect their opinion and expertise and experience, and so there's at least that. Any other questions or comments?
I think Fairhope's a really nice city. I think it's put together real well, and I think his experience will help us out quite a bit.
Okay. Mayor, anything else?
No, sir, thank y'all for the time.
Thank you. Next, we have resolution number 21-36, approve funding for design labor of mayor's office for communications specialist. Kyle.
Good evening, council. This item, this is just some housekeeping. We approved 21-6, which was the office space for our communications specialist. In the body of the resolution, we failed to include the details for the design and labor costs, so it was actually short, $2,326. I'm assuming y'all are under the impression that that resolution captured everything. It didn't, and so this is a technical cleanup to be able to do the whole project properly.
What did we approve?
We approved the physical walls and
Well,
desks.
do you remember the dollar amount?
$8,194.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Kyle.
Okay.
All right, resolution number 21-37, approved donation from DDRA for designing Decatur 2020 project. Alan?
Yes, Council Mayor. This is a donation that we received from DDRA to assist us with our 2020 Design Decatur project. Matter of fact, nice to have these.
Yeah.
Andy, look at that. These are the booklets that Caroline spent time designing, and we got a grant for the majority of this cost. This will assist us with crayons and workbook expenses. These will go to all fourth graders in the city of Decatur. You know, we have received emails, letters from all over the country really about our design of this, and the state is just ecstatic with the way it turned out, and I am too. I think Caroline did an outstanding job. Needs to be commended for what she's done. You know, it wound up being about a $20,000 project when you take the artist and all their time that donated to get this together. But this $1,000 will just allow us to again, either with crayons or to finish the cost of the workbooks. And this, they made the donation, and we just got to go through the process in finance to accept that donation and then allow us to expend. We've already got the money, actually, to be honest with you. So it's just housekeeping.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you all. I mean, this is really great, especially for the kids of the community. I think that's phenomenal. Thank you to everybody who worked on that.
Thank y'all.
All right, resolution number 21-38, approve FFCRA benefit eligibility period extension. Rochelle?
Yeah, back last summer in the middle of the pandemic, the city adopted a policy under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, HB 6201, that offered emergency sick leave, paid time off to folks who had a COVID exposure, as well as expanded FMLA benefits for school closing. The Personnel Board has a unanimous recommendation to extend those emergency paid sick leave benefits through March 31st. The original policy and act expired on 12/31. And this policy or this extension does not add or start over benefits. It just simply extends an eligibility period for those folks who did not have a COVID exposure last year and may still have some benefits available to them. So the board just recommends that we extend this policy, extend the expiration date to 3/31, and then come back and revisit at the March meeting, depending on what's happening with the pandemic.
Hey, any questions? Thanks, Rochelle. Well, you're next too. Resolution number 21-39, correct job description, education requirements.
Yeah, because we were working with the city clerk's office last week on filling a position. We discovered that the education requirements in the accountant 1 for the city clerk's department and the accountant 2 for the city clerk's department were reversed. So this is just to approve, to housekeeping to clean that up and get those back into the system and posted correctly.
Okay, any questions? Thanks, Rochelle. Resolution number 21-40, approved Decatur Fire Station number 5 water main system extension contract. Carl?
Yes, Mayor, Council, last meeting we did a wastewater agreement with Decatur Utilities for the fire station. This is, a same type of agreement just for the water main extension, to the new fire station being built.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you. Resolution number 21-41, approve engineering drainage design proposal by CDG Engineering. Carl?
Yes, this project is, I guess, starts around the Deerfoot, subdivision off of Shady Grove Lane and runs to Old Bolton Road. We've had some drainage issues in that area, and we've looked at it. We've, I guess, had a study done for it, and there's a plan or a design that will work, and this is a request for funding to do that design.
Okay, any questions for Carl? All right, next, resolution number 21-42, approval, or approve CDG stormwater management proposal.
Yes, these are part of has an AGM permit for stormwater, discharges into the waters of the United States. About every 5 years, we're required to update the stormwater management plan based on new permits that come out. It takes a long time for us with our small staff to do that, and I've asked for a proposal from CDG to aid us with that. This money was approved in the general fund budget, in my budget, so I'm not asking for additional money, but just asking for the agreement to be approved.
All right, any questions? All right, resolution number 21-43, approve additional street resurfacing projects. Carl?
Yeah, I was asked to come up with a list of roads, for additional funding for this year. And I came up with that, the roads that were attached to the resolution, approximate $1.2 million worth of roadways, and putting them on this agenda, asking for that additional funding if the council wants to move forward with paving those streets. Need to probably get that in line now instead of later in the year, so we can try to accomplish it by the end of the fiscal year.
All right, any questions?
Mr. DeMeester, you comfortable with this?
Yes, sir.
Y'all know I am. I'm just making sure you are.
Carl, can you just talk through kind of how we decide, I know y'all probably, maybe I'm the only one that doesn't know, but how do we get these roads? This is, I'm just curious how you come up with these roads.
A lot of the roads, we've had them rated, about a year and a half ago. And we try to pick some of the worst roads, generally with funding available. I try to pick the worst roads in each of the council people's districts, and for the best part that I can, distribute that money evenly, although some districts have worse roads than others, so it's not always exactly even. These are some of the bigger roads that need some attention in each of the districts, and as you see, there's not very many on this list. So, with the additional funding, if I can take care of these larger roads with this additional funding, next year's paving list, which will, assuming be about the same as this year, which was about 1.2 million, I can scatter that through some of the smaller roads, some of the residential roads that also need attention. But basically, I took the list based off our rating system, and I made those selections and proposed them, beyond.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
I'll add to the gas tax funds, which are designated for road resurfacing. If the projects that we've finished up now come in better than we thought, or we get additional revenue than anticipated, we'll utilize that money towards this to alleviate some of the burden on the unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
Hey,
All right.
Carl, on 8th Street, just to clarify, we're already planning to pay from the McDonald's, roughly right there off 6th Avenue, up to 14th, and then what this will do is carry it from 14th to 19th. So essentially, it'll repave most of 8th Street.
That's correct, yeah. This year's budget, we have budget paid from roughly 7th Street to 14th, and this budget would carry it from 14th on to 19th. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Carl. Resolution number 21-44, authorize the mayor to execute lease of Housing Authority property for DYS use. Brandon, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
So this is, this is for Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, sir, it's, Working Club, when they get ready to, redo the care management center, we need a place to continue to house the kids, the children, and things of that nature.
Okay. Any questions?
There's
Sorry.
no money involved in your contract, they'll have to be in the bid.
Okay.
What was it, Brian? Was it like a 5-year lease and just basically, no monetary, expense to the city? Is that correct?
No, sir, it's utility and no money here, yes, sir.
Okay.
Just a year.
Cool, thank you.
All right, any questions? Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right, resolution number 21-45 authorizes the mayor to execute data use agreement with ADPH. Mayor or Herman? Herman, you want to speak to that one?
Yes. Basically, some of the mayors across the state asked that the Alabama Department of Public Health provides some health information. Of course, some of it is sensitive information. We are suggesting that Rodney Shepherd be our contact person. What it will allow us to do is get some data to help us make some health-related decisions in the city. You know, we're trying to give us an idea of the various health challenges in our municipality. And it can be canceled at any time, but it just allows us to get some data that we wouldn't otherwise be able to receive. And then, of course, Rodney's a natural choice because he's handling the health portion as far as employees and the impact of our employees and their families. So that's what it does. It's a statewide opportunity. But it specifies for the city of Decatur. It helps us.
Okay.
Thank you, Herman. Sure.
All right, any questions? All right, resolution number 21-46, authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Hood Contracting for the clearing of 15 acres of land for the proposed C&D disposal site, the city of Decatur, Morgan County Regional Landfill, in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Wanda?
Yes, as a part of the C&D expansion, we're needing to clear out approximately 15 acres of land. The lowest bidder was Hood Contracting Inc. out of Trinity, Alabama. And we need to have this cleared by March 31st. That's all. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Thanks, Wanda. All right, resolution number 21-47, award bid 21-04 for leasing of golf carts for Point Mallard to Yamaha. Charles?
Yes, sir. This is a standing bid of ours that we had to receive because it expired, and we're recommending award to Yamaha for deflated golf carts, some maintenance private carts, and some seasonal carts for the golf course.
Okay, any questions? Thanks, Charles. The next.
Charles, this is Herman. This is a straight out lease. This is not a lease purchase. Is that correct?
That's correct. But generally, your cart's gonna be pretty worn out by the time over a 4-year period, and you really end up with a lot of acres.
Okay, All right, the next two, Stephanie, they were coming off, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Both of them are coming off.
All right. All right, ordinances, ordinance number 21-4446, renamed to correct spelling of Resnick CK Drive Southwest to Resnick K Drive Southwest. Joseph?
Yes, this is a proposal to rename Resnick Drive to Resnick Drive, but with spelling corrected to reflect the actual spelling of the name of Judith Resnick, who tragically lost her life in the Challenger incident in the Westmead area, where a number of other streets are also named on our astronauts who lost their lives in the Challenger disaster.
Okay, any questions? Thanks, Joseph. Next one, and I'll read both of them, if you're good. Ordinance number 21-4448, declare surplus and authorize the sale of 612 Blaine Drive Southwest to Jim Morrill in the amount of $5,000. And ordinance number 21-4449, declare surplus and authorize the sale of 611 Denise Drive Southwest to Jim Morrill in the amount of $5,000. Alan?
Yeah, these are the ones that we presented last week, unless you have questions.
Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next we have board appointments. First one is appoint Larry Way to BOZA with term expiring 12/31/2023. Any questions? And, well, I'll read them.
Both of these will be supernumerary because that's where the initial appointments are, and as people rotate off, they move up, so these both will be coming in.
I think we had 2 resignations.
We had one
Finished.
rotated off that didn't want to be renewed, one resigned.
Okay. And the other one is appoint Brad Townsend to BOZA with term expiring 12/31/2023. I can speak to Larry. I mean, I've got nothing but compliments from folks who I think Larry had served before and had expressed a desire to serve again. I think he'd do a great job coming back on BOZA. And then I'm not sure if somebody wants to speak about Brad.
Yeah, Brad's, he's a engineer, and he would just like to get involved and serve back with the city.
All right, next regular work session will be on February 22nd, 2021 at 5 p.m. Next regular council meeting will be, after next week, will be on March 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. And then our council meeting next week will be at 10, next Monday. Anything else from directors? Rochelle, do you just want to kind of go over Friday? I know we had sent out a notice, but.
Yes, we did have a candidate withdraw today, so we have 4 interviews starting at 9 a.m. on Friday morning. We'll provide the questionnaire, the interview toolkit along with their profiles, and we will ask the candidates to wait outside or down on the first floor until their appointed time to interview. If you're available, you can arrive by 8:30. I can run through the toolkit, give you some quick pointers on how to do an appropriate scoring, and then from there, it's just ask some follow-up questions. If you have some questions you'd like included in that questionnaire, go ahead and send those to me, and we'll make sure that all the candidates are asked those same questions. And I think that's about it.
Okay. Any questions for Rochelle?
I have a question for Rochelle and Brad, actually. Have we started recording our personnel board meetings?
No, we're not.
We have not?
We have not.
Is there a reason that we have not? Okay. Harmon, is there a reason that we have not?
That's a personnel board decision, and I don't know anything about that decision. That's personnel board decides. It's their meeting.
Okay. I don't, Harmon, that's, okay. It's sunshine law. If anybody requests it, it should happen. And you know that as well as I do, but, okay, we'll keep moving in that direction then.
Well, I'm just sharing, I don't know, I've not been, I'll share with you, I've not been part of the personnel board decision. The sunshine law doesn't require a video of public meetings.
It doesn't require one, but it offers the opportunity to have it just like we're having it tonight. It doesn't require that we have one here tonight, but we're having it. It doesn't require that we have.
I'm sharing with you.
Yeah,
I'm not-
I fully understand that.
I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah.
you, I'm just sharing that you said the sunshine law, it doesn't require.
It does not require it, just like it doesn't for planning commission or BOZA or anything else.
Could not be broadcast if they wish to do so.
Say it again now?
I said, there is no reason other than at the decision of the personnel board. You're correct, it can be broadcast. Transparency, involves broadcasting of those type meetings, but there are certain items within the personnel board meetings that are not of public, interest or public, should not be disseminated publicly, but involve the personal lives of our employees and those, their family members.
That is absolutely correct, and that allows. That is absolutely correct, and that allows them to go into executive session if they choose to. But am I hearing you say that if the personnel board chooses not to have the meetings recorded, that they have the right to not, even though the Sunshine Law says that there's a right for anybody to record that who wants to? Is that what you're saying, that the personnel board has a right to not do that?
I am saying that it is the decision of the personnel board as to whether they broadcast through YouTube or other broadcast media their meetings.
So in effect,
I am saying that.
so you're saying that they can say, we're not gonna do this?
I'm saying that it is their decision whether they broadcast their meetings or not.
Okay, I'm just trying to put it in plain terms. I hear you saying that. But you're saying that if they say, we don't want to do this, that they don't have to do that?
I think, yes, Andrew, I think I'm saying the same thing you're saying. It's their decision. If they choose not to have it broadcast, then it's not broadcast.
That's not accurate.
I'm talking about through YouTube or other media.
So if someone requests it, well, let's just put it like this. I'm requesting that we broadcast our personnel board meetings.
Okay, so go to the personnel board and request it. I mean,
I'm talking to Herman.
Well, no,
I'm talking to Herman. I'm talking to Herman.
Doesn't just have, they don't have to listen to the council meeting.
They don't.
They might not tune in.
Yeah, I'm talking to Herman. But the thing is, Herman, I'm making a request because our employees should have the opportunity, because they're working, most of them, to be able to go back and watch the personnel board meetings as to things that impact them as employees. So I don't agree that the personnel board can simply say, we don't want to broadcast it and it not be broadcasted. So,
Well, let me say this. I will, this week, I will get with the appropriate people involving the personnel board and find out additional information that's available as to their reasoning, and then we'll give you an answer back. I mean, I'm not trying.
Okay.
That's their area, but it's also a city area. City employees are involved, and I don't disagree. I'm not trying to disagree with you at all, but you asked the question, and the answer is what I've shared. But
Okay.
I will dig deeper and find out their reasoning, okay?
that's fine. But
I understand what you're asking.
yeah, I would like to see us in those meetings. And again, Sunshine Law provides that if there are certain issues that need to be discussed in private, that they can go into executive session. But you and I both know that it needs to qualify as that. So anyway, I'm good with it. I am making the request, and I'd like to see us broadcast those.
Is every other city board broadcast? I mean, I know we got BOZA, planning, this.
Several started getting broadcast from those events. And just like in here, we had done it in here earlier, but those are those that,
I would add to that, just, I'm sure, to what I guess Mr. McMaster's is saying is, I'm sure every municipality has probably gone through this question this year, and you might want to get, I wouldn't mind if we asked the league for some guidance on that. I'm sure they've dealt with it before.
Let's be clear, though, the league is simply an advisory
Sure.
capacity, in an advisory capacity, that's it.
Yeah, I'd like them to advise us on that matter. Anything else from council?
Well, in all openness, I didn't hear what Mr. McMaster said, so I'm not sure.
He just asked about other boards being broadcast, if all other boards were broadcast.
The league said the same thing.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That it can be broadcast, but it's not required.
Okay.
And I guess my concern is very simply that, you know, there's a lot of pushback on this. And I think that's what makes everybody wonder, why are we pushing back? If everything's, I mean, if we're doing everything above board, why are we pushing back on this? I don't know that anybody's pushing back on council meetings being broadcast or any other meeting that's being broadcast. So, you know, I don't understand the reason for the pushback. So, that's where we are.
Okay, anything else from council?
Yeah, I've got something that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to bring to y'all's attention that I think it's very important that we try and work with. So we have of course, we've got the situation going on with first response right now, and of course, y'all just did the thing on February 1st, which I was absent for. But, so Mr. Childers, who's the president and owner of First Response Ambulance Service, sent an email to Chief Tracy Thornton requesting 5 things to be changed on the ordinance to help them better service the city of Decatur and to also protect their employees. And some of the things that are on here, I do agree with. Some things I do not agree with, but then again, it's up for discussion. But I want to get the talks rolling on it. And these 5 things are, number 1, he would like to change the response times to reflect the NFPA standard, which is 540 seconds within the city. He would like to change the response time in the PJ to 20 minutes, as that is required response time in the rest of the county, excuse me. Number 3 would be change the monetary penalty for the response times to $2,500 first quarter and $5,000 if the quarters are consecutive of less than 90%. He would also like to remove the point system. And at number 5 would be, he would like to remove the audited financial statement. Our CPA will supply a financial each year if he would like, but he doesn't want it to be audited. So, that's just something that I thought I'd bring up. I'm also gonna bring it up to ARB on February 16th. But I figured bring it up for discussion.
Is that in an email?
It is in an email, yes.
I wouldn't mind if you shared that so
Yeah.
that we could see what he's requesting. But
If I could make one
Sure.
point, and I think maybe we haven't been speaking in a language Mr. Childers can understand. Since the whole ordinance process started, he has been told monthly that if he wants any changes made to the ordinance, he needs to submit those to the EMS coordinator, who would submit it to the ARB. They would look at it, present it to the council with a recommendation, yes or no, for it to be approved. And every month, he has refused to do that, except for 1 month, when he gave us a rewrite of the entire ordinance that had been proposed before the ordinance was adopted. And today, he has sent a single member of the council the changes he wants made, when still, if he would take it to the ARB, they have to vote to recommend or not recommend that to the council, for then y'all then to approve it. We don't have a problem with y'all considering whatever comes up, but it's gotta go through the steps.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Connor. If you don't mind going through that process, which would need to go through and I guess it was sent to Chief Thornton, it
Yes.
sounds like. So just, let's go through that process and if the ARB recommends those changes.
Yeah, I
and-
think it
and-
needs to go through the proper channels
Well, so
first, before it comes to us. I'd like for that discussion to be had
Agreed.
in the ARB meeting, with Chief Thornton and Ashley England as well, get their input on it.
Agreed. So when you say submitting a request, how does the submitting a request process go? Or who does he submit the request
I would
to?
like the following changes to be made and give it to Ashley England.
So he can't just request it to Chief Thornton? He can't give it to Chief Thornton and call it quits?
I mean,
Does that not?
I think-
It goes to
I think
EMS
Chip just
coordinator
said that
first.
this has been put in place for years. They just have not followed through in that step. Is that
Right.
correct?
over a year since this new ordinance went into effect.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that for me.
Just getting it through the proper channels is what we're looking for.
Process. Thanks, Mr. Pepper. Anything else from council, mayor, anything from you?
No, thank you.
All right.
Councilor Levin.
Yes. Sorry.
I get the chief on it.
Hey, Chief.
I did get that email. Working on it, but I was gonna make contact with you on tomorrow about it. So I was gonna talk to Chip before I do that, but just, I just wanna let you know, I do have it and I have been working on it.
Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Thank you all. Dismissed.
Yeah.